And I had to leave my life at like a week's notice because they called me up and said, Eleanor, we've got a space on a ship. This never happens. I was never promised this, but it's leaving next week from Costa Rica. If I had to describe how deep my love is for the deep sea, I think my love for the deep sea could be encapsulated in curiosity. I think endless curiosity, endless questions, endless unknowns. I think that's what makes me love the deep sea, because it's all that kind of unknowns of our world in a place that's so unexplored. I discovered through wanting to kind of pitch for a project about protecting 30% of the oceans by 2030. There was an NGO who was doing a call out for films about that. And so I got really excited about this project, and then they cut the funding. They had no funding to make this film. And I was like, by that point, I was completely obsessed. I was like, there's this whole bit of the world that, nobody knows about. It's not protected at the moment. No nation owns it, which was also very curious to me because I'm interested in kind of unknown places. I'm interested in the concept of ownership. Why have humans placed flags everywhere? I became interested in making a film about this last frontier of human discovery, but mostly about the perspective on us as humans from the inhabitants of this place, which is the last unexplored by humans place on Earth.
Tethered to the ship by a cable, Isis will descend for 4 hours before reaching the seabed, nearly 5 kilometers below.
I had to leave my life at like a week's notice because they called me up and said, Eleanor, we've got a space on a ship. This never happens. I was never promised this, but it's leaving next week from Costa Rica. And there was never any doubt in my mind that I was going to go, but I had to leave my home. I had a teaching job. I had to leave at short notice. And so I didn't think about anything. I had to do a sea survival training course. I had to get my 2 wisdom teeth taken out just in case they were having trouble on the ship. And, I'd done all these things, but I hadn't really prepared for being on a ship because I hadn't had time. So I was sitting there on the deck thinking, what have I done? I need to get off the ship. Help. By that point, we were off for 2 months.
The abyssal plain covers half of the surface of the Earth, but far less than 1% of it has ever been seen by humans.
The need for the voiceover came about in the edit because there needed to be a character in the film that wasn't the scientist, that is actually the character of the observer, as I like to call myself. So a different perspective from the scientists. The scientists were very much focused on their research, and they didn't really want to talk about the political situation or the wider context. And there came the need for a voice which would guide the audience as to those kind of bigger questions and be the kind of voice of what the observer saw. Just as the scientists were talking about what they saw, I was talking about what I saw. And so it was this sort of chain of observing, and the voice was this kind of curious, slightly weird observer character that's on the outside of the science. I think a lot of times love comes from, looking, and I think one aspect of filming that we don't often think about as filmmakers is that filming can be an act of love. Observing somebody or something is an act of attention, and therefore is an act of love. I think that's sort of an under-recognized side of what we do and why we do what we do. I would like people to take away, have a sense of how much there is out there that we don't yet understand, and to feel the kind of possibility of that, not in terms of like what money we can make, or how can we exploit it, or how can we get what we need as humans from it, but there's so much out there that we don't yet understand. And I think as humans, we think we understand everything, but we don't understand. We understand like a tiny, tiny slice of the world.